Hey there, Seb by the Realtor here. Do you have a home listed for sale and you're having a hard time selling it? Or do you have a home that you want to sell but you think the sale is going to be kind of difficult? And in either case, you just want to know what is the easiest and best way to get that property sold for the absolute highest price the market will possibly bear? If you have a difficult house to sell, or you have a house that's just not moving and you want to know how you can for sure get that property sold quickly and easily for an amazing price, then you definitely want to watch this video. All right, well, I want to share with you the story of a house that I had that was just like that. And it was a very unusual home. It was actually a manufactured home, like a mobile home. But it was not in a mobile home park. It was actually on like a regular city block right in the middle of town. And that is very unusual in the Bay Area to have a manufactured home in a neighborhood full of like regular stick-built homes and condominiums. And it was on like a good sized lot, not huge, but it was like rather a deep lot, not like a wide lot, sort of like a deep lot. And it was on a street that had no sidewalks, and it also had no parking. There was no parking on the street, and actually on the site of this property itself, there was only off-street parking for 2 cars. There was also a 2-car garage, and you could have parked in the backyard if you wanted to drive down the side of the house, but then you would have had cars parked in your backyard. Would have been pretty weird. And it was on a street with some faster moving traffic, a 35-mile-an-hour street. But it was in a good location, not far from like, parks and like amenities and shopping and schools and all that stuff. So it did have a pretty good location, aside from the fact that it was on that kind of busy street without really any parking or sidewalks or anything like that. But the big issue was that it was a manufactured home, and there's kind of like a stigma against manufactured homes. Like a lot of buyers just don't know what to make of them, and a lot of appraisers don't know what to make of them when they are in a situation like this one is, which is it's a manufactured home on like real land in the middle of a city where there aren't really any other comparable properties. Like it was really hard to say how much that home was going to sell for because nothing like it had really ever sold. So the seller was actually an adult child of a mom and dad who unfortunately were in poor health. And actually, the mom passed away after we signed the listing agreement, but before it went on the multiple listing service. But dad still lived in the house, but he required a caregiver. And there was like a lot of, medical equipment on site. And also because they'd been living in a situation with poor health for some time, they had let a few things go around the house, and it wasn't really exactly an immaculate home. It wasn't something you would really see on the cover of Home and Garden magazine or whatever. Although it did have, I think, a really nice floor plan, and it did have that, big, juicy lot, so it did have some things going for it. But it didn't exactly look, picture perfect, shall we say. And it was difficult to show the property because they only wanted to have showings when there was a caregiver around, or when they could have the father out of the house, perhaps at a doctor's appointment or something like that. So there was limited availability for showings. And actually, we put the home up for sale on October 2nd. It was October 2nd of last year, actually, that we put it on the market. And, that is kind of late in the year, right? I mean, it's fourth quarter. And because we did have, somewhat limited showings, we did not get a lot of people through the door. And even though the price, because we priced it at $1,250,000, again, that's $100,000 below my guesstimate of fair market value, I figured we would still get a good amount of interest in the property. And we did have people come and see the property, but the thing was, I got the feedback time and time again, hey, is that a manufactured home, right? That was like the number one question. And so we didn't get any offers. And in fact, it was not really very well received in the marketplace at all. We did not get a lot of showings. We did not get a lot of buyers coming through the open house. So right around Thanksgiving, so again, we launched in early October, and we went through like 6 weeks or 7 weeks of this kind of like tepid response, and days were getting shorter, and it was starting to rain, and it was getting a little colder. And right around Thanksgiving, we did drop the price from 1.25 down to $1.2 million. And right around that time, they moved Dad out to go and be with the adult daughter in another state. And so at that point, we did have a house that was empty. And, there was not really, most of the furniture was gone, and we cleaned it up, right? And so it looked better. But it still did not look exactly immaculate because it had not had a lot of, routine maintenance like painting and, some stuff like that done to it for the past who knows how many years. And so, we did have that price reduction, and we did have more buyers come through the property. But again, we still didn't have like a flood of buyers, which you would have expected to have like a lot of buyers through if in fact a home which was worth 1.35, let's just say, was on the market for 1.2, right? You would think you would have quite a bit of interest, but it just wasn't happening. But then on Christmas Eve, on December 24th, we did in fact get an offer on the property, and it was a lowball offer. It was an offer for, I believe it was $1,050,000, and we were asking $1.2 million, so $150,000 below our asking price. And we turned around and we countered right away at $1,169,000, which was, a decent haircut off of list price. And what did the buyer do? The buyer walked away. The buyer vanished. The buyer just checked out completely. So after that, the seller got a little discouraged. She said, listen, it's been like 3 months on market, and if I can't sell it, I'm just going to go ahead and rent it. And she asked me, to get some paint bids to paint it for the tenant. And then she asked me for some property manager referrals, which I gave her those. And I said, listen, would you really want to sell it versus renting it? And she said, well, definitely I want to sell it. It would work much better for me and my family to sell it. Actually, I need to sell it. But if I can't sell it, I'm going to have to rent it out. And I said, okay, well, listen, I have a real crazy idea. Why don't we just drop the price down super, super low and get a ton of offers and see how much we can, drive the price up with a whole bunch of different offers. And she was like, really? Is that going to work? I mean, this was at the end of the year, right? This was basically like, December 31st or January 2nd that we were having this conversation. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's just give it a try. And I showed her some situations where we had properties which had recently sold, for 10, 15, 20, 30% over list price. And I said, you can do the exact same thing. Let's just give it a shot and see how high we can, drive the price up. And so she said, okay, well, let's just give it a try. She had nothing to lose because if she didn't sell it, she was going to rent it for who knows how long. So what did we do? We dropped the price down to $900,000. And this was on January 2nd. Still in the holiday season, or at least recovering from the holiday season, January 2nd. The days were short. It was cold. It was a wet January. But we dropped the price down from that $1.2 million down to $900,000. And guess what happened? Within a week, we had 7 offers on the property. Yes, and many of these offers were actually below list price. Some were at list price, and a few of them were over list price. And I went to work, did my job, negotiated with the various parties, and I got one buyer to agree to buy it at $1,125,000. And we went into contract with that buyer. That was a first-time home buyer, and unfortunately, they got scared by the fact that it was a manufactured home. I guess people were telling them that, hey, you shouldn't buy a manufactured home. I don't know what happened exactly. I was talking to the agent, not the buyer, and the agent didn't really even give me a good excuse, but I'm guessing it came down to them having cold feet. I don't know. So we fell out of contract. Oh, it's a terrible thing. So now we'd been on the market for 3 months. We'd had 2 price reductions. We had a fallout. It was January. Manufactured home on a busy street with no on-street parking and very little off-street parking, deferred maintenance, right? So we certainly had a lot of challenges, but back on the market we went after that fallout, and guess what happened? We got 9 offers this time. 9 offers came in 6 days. Now, some of those 9 offers, I think like 4 or 5 of them had previously offered. So about 4 or 5 out of those 7 made offers again. We got some more people, and then we had a total of 9 offers. And what did I do? I went and I negotiated with all 9 of those buyers. I think like 5 of them or so were actually below list price. 1 was actually at list price and several were above list price. But it doesn't really matter what the offers come in at. What really matters is how many offers do you have? How many different buyers do you have on the hook who are interested, who you can, get to compete against each other to give you, the seller, the very best price and terms. And so I negotiated with those buyers, and guess what? We had 2 buyers who were willing to pay $1,115,000. And one of those buyers was actually that very first buyer who made that offer at $1,050,000, who we countered at $1,169,000, who walked away. Well, when that buyer was competing with all those other buyers, he did come up $65,000 from his initial offer, and we got some really great terms out of that buyer as well. And we did get that sale closed just about 3 weeks later at $1,115,000, which was just about 24% over list price. 24%. And again, manufactured home in an area where there really are no manufactured homes, deferred maintenance, limited off-street parking, no on-street parking whatsoever, busy street, no sidewalks, right? I mean, we certainly had our challenges, multiple price reductions, 90 plus days on market, a fallout. But you know what? None of that mattered in the end, because what really matters is the law of supply and demand. When we put that price down at $900,000, we at that point were clearly well below market value. And when the market saw that, what did the market do? It flooded in with the buyers. And of course, I had to negotiate with the buyers. That is why you hire a realtor, to help you, work the buyers against each other and find out which buyer can give you the absolute best price and the best combination of price and terms as well. And that is what we ultimately got. So if you have a home that is a little unusual, that you think is going to be difficult to sell, or you have been trying to sell it, maybe it's on the market right now and you're not getting a lot of response, and you don't want to sell it for less than it's worth, listen, do yourself a favor. Just drop that price way down low. It doesn't matter what time of year. It doesn't matter if it's the holidays, or if it's cold, or if it's wet, or you had multiple price reductions already, or if you had the property fall out of contract. None of that matters, because once you get the price down to where there is very little competition, and then always as you go down in price, what do you find? You find more demand. There is much greater demand for lower priced properties than there are for higher priced properties. What do you have when you have that imbalance of supply and demand? You know it. You know what happens. The law of supply and demand, which is a law, it applies everywhere, at all times, to all properties, in all market conditions. The law of supply and demand goes to work when there's low supply and high demand. What happens to the price? The price goes up, and that is exactly what happened in this case, and it happens in every single case. So if you have a tricky property to sell, or if you have like a regular awesome property that just for whatever reason isn't selling, can't figure out what it is, but you do want to get that property sold, don't wait. Just give that a really, really big price drop. Get it down low to the point where you know for sure you're going to be swamped with offers, and then let your realtor, hopefully that would be me, work those buyers and get you the absolute best combination of price and terms. It works for every property, every market, no matter what. All right, that is all I have for this video. I hope you have enjoyed watching it. And if by any slim chance you have enjoyed watching it, I'm guessing, just a guess, you might also enjoy some of these videos over here. These are some of the most popular videos here on my YouTube channel, so please do take a look. All right, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and please stay tuned.